right, let's do a little mindfulness. Here we go. So you want to kind of get a good posture. Then you want to inhale through your nose. And you want to, I like to go very slowly, close my eyes, and really try to become aware or focused on your breath. And notice your lungs inhaling. Notice, and as you're raising your arms up, notice how naturally they float there. Notice how the whole procession feels good. The whole procession of breathing feels good to the body, to the brain. Probably a little dopamine is released or something. That's an experience. And you want to take your time, slowly move that experience, noticing its qualities, how good it feels. And you want to slowly exhale. And you want the weight that gravity places against you to guide your exhale. And you want to realize also those qualities and how that feels good. And when all this is happening, I think your brain's functioning better. I think you're probably passing electrons better, moving them around better, organizing them better, processing better, being here better, being more aware better. And so then you want to, and then it starts to kind of populate your mind with ideas of, well, how do I live more in that experience I'm having right now? And that's kind of where your own journey begins with mindfulness. Like I said, I focused on thankfulness and productivity a lot. And, I did that because I thought that was the most natural response to life, the most obscure observance about life. If you look at the life cycle and you see you being born, you realize that you were just completely dependent, just all bound up in this symbiotic relationship. This three-way between you, your mom, and the environment. It's the most kind of obscure abstraction that you can gather about life. And so then it's like, okay, so you're all bound up in this symbiotic relationship, right? Like that's your first interpretation of life. That's like you being in your mom's womb, all your biology, and all that organizing, like, okay, this is gonna survive, here we go, was to be all bound up in this symbiotic relationship with life. That's how you interpret data. That's where you're most powerful. That's your most powerful state, is to be all bound up in symbiotic relation to life. It's the most natural state. And I thought, how if I gotta be there, if I gotta move through life like that, in my most powerful state, I want to be productive as well. So that's what I focus on, because it was simple. When you get into mindfulness, you really like simplicity. It seems more powerful for some reason. It seems more favorable for some reason. And you start to notice those kind of subtleties. And you say, why is this happening? Maybe there's just this natural narrative of life being here, nature, kind of more like realizing the symbiosis we have with nature and its narrative, and it's still here and it's still surviving. About just, I don't know, just kind of surviving, just kind of being here. Just kind of like wanting to kind of be more congenial to the narrative life. And that's kind of the journey of mindfulness, meditation. And I think that probably your most powerful state that you can be in is bound up in some symbiosis and it being going well, it being organized well, you being able to process data well, it working, uh, so to speak. You know, making it. So that's a powerful state of consciousness to be all bound up in some symbiotic relation to the narrative of life and it going well. And that's, I think, is part of having a good relation to the narrative that's going on inside your mind. And if you can practice through practice, get to a place where you're aware of these type of ideas, having a conversation with yourself first and then others, or whatever, vice versa, about these type of ideas. I don't mean to make any type of distinction about with yourself first or with others first, because there is a time for like learning about meditation and talking about it, and then there's a time for like jumping in there and finding yourself. And so, let that come as it may. But in those experiences, with yourself, finding yourself, you will start to have serious conversations more with yourself about what you feel like your genes need to express here. And let that do its thing, practice it, foster that, invent that. I think that these are some of the fundamental principles of mindfulness meditation. Go out in nature and look at nature, look at a tree and see and invent the ideas in which it worked and practice those. How it learned its way upward straight against having to deal with gravity. Uh, so it invented its pathway with the help of gravity, and it worked. And it eats and it drinks, and trees communicate with each other, and it's all bound up in some relation to something else, a symbiotic relationship to something else. And it worked. I think these type of ideas are good for the mind to embrace, especially if you want to be powerful. So that's those are some of the positive benefits of mindfulness.